Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Follow Brand Podcast. I am elated right now. I had the privilege of seeing my next guest live down here in South Florida. He blew me away with his perspectives on where we're at now from an emerging technology perspective. He has worked in this sector for a number of years. He's very creative. He has been working with a lot of different consultants along his time in many industries, but he has a passion for healthcare. And I wanted to bring him to the stage. Let's talk about this because he is going to be our keynote speaker for HIM South Florida. And we're going to talk about Digital Horizons 2023. So let's bring up Richie. Let's have a conversation. Richie, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Hey, Grant, thanks for having me. And hello to all the listeners out there. I don't know where this guy gets the energy from. It's late in the afternoon and he's still stoked here. But thanks for having me. I'm sort of like a three-legged stool. I'm a geek in one leg. I'm a corporate operator in another, and I'm sort of a creative in another. So I have the pleasure of working across different industries, different type of risk ambition, whether it's publicly traded companies, PE backed or venture. But where I have my oxygen, where I get my oxygen is from speaking and sharing and collaborating. So I'm in my zone here. Let's get it going.
Well, let's get it going. First, let's back up just a little bit because I believe you're in New York City. Is that what you call home in the New York area?
I am. Yep. I'm in the New York City area.
But you got your beginnings in Guyana. I want to hear just a little bit. How do you go from being in a small company in Guyana to you're in the Big Apple, the big city, doing big things with big tech? How does that happen?
Well, it's a banana boat. That's how you get here. So, born in South America, it's a British-speaking colony. Guyana is not very economically advanced, although the last 10 years has been very interesting because oil was found off of the coast of the country, and now it's one of the fastest growing GDPs in the world. But I migrated here right after college, right after high school, about 30 years ago to go to college here, and went through the same experience like everybody else, right? You travel, 20 years in the future. I remember landing here and thinking that, only Eddie Murphy had a limousine because I had seen, Coming to America. And when I landed at JFK Airport and saw all the limousines outside, I thought, man, Eddie Murphy must be here. But then I realized, that's just a difference in the world. So, getting here as a migrant, it has its pros and its cons. But one of the things that I really enjoyed was traveling 20 years into the future. So you come from a country, maybe I traveled 30, 40 years. That's really backwards, doesn't have all the electric stuff, doesn't have the computer. And then you take a 5-hour flight and you land here and like, oh my God, look at all this stuff that I never thought could happen. And that trait has kind of led me to the place that I am today, where I now realize that the future is always here. It's just not distributed evenly. And so that's given me sort of that vantage point to look at various markets and kind of see trends, et cetera.
That is a wonderful analogy. I never even thought of it like that. You could land on this very planet, just go to a different geography. Maybe like that's what I would probably feel if I went to Silicon Valley or something like that. Like, wow, look at all this cool stuff. I'm gonna tell you something. When I was with you here in South Florida, you popped open your computer and I saw you working with this spatial engineering. And I'm like, what the heck is Richie doing? And then you're telling me, yeah, I invented this technology, man. You've got to share that with our audience.
Yeah, so the geek part of me kind of dances with the corporate part, and then they hang out with the creative part together. There's people that are bipolar. I'm sort of tripolar, I suppose. What Grant and I, we were there talking about AI in the future. I'm operating a venture-backed company in the meantime. And the thing with startups is that when you play them, you have to play for a big outcome. It's very hard. It's very difficult. You don't go into startups hoping, to hit a single. You go into startups looking for a grand slam because it's so hard. It's so difficult, and you underestimate the difficulty so much that you shouldn't do anything that's small. And so the startup that I'm operating right now, we looked at a thesis and we said, if people are going to be more remote, and if people are going to start to interact, collaborate, communicate, and transact more on the screens that we have today, what is something that's going to be needed in the future to be able to make that feel more natural? And the thing that we saw was headsets. So the VR headset, the AR headset, that was sort of the version of reality that existed right in front of us. If you wanted to have a deeper connection, if you wanted to communicate better, if you wanted to have more retention in what you say, you got to kind of stick a headset on your head and kind of do that. And I thought that there are other versions of that reality in the future. And I had a thesis that we could use software using machine learning and computer vision. This was way before AI became popular. This was about 3.5, 4 years ago, to build a software version of a headset where using the devices that you have today, your Mac, your PC, your regular camera, without putting anything on your head, without putting anything on your hands, to be able to get the same benefits of a headset, to feel like you're there in the room, to feel an interactivity, a perception of depth. And, 3 years in, $25 million of engineering after, a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, we now have software that allows you to experience the benefits of virtual reality right on the computer you have without having to put a hardware on. We called it immersive reality. So there's VR, AR, and we call this IR. Works on the web. Super interesting. I think that the simplest way to get the audience a visual for it is think about your computer on your desk that you have right now, your laptop or your PC. Think about the front of it becoming interactive air, like Minority Report, like Tom Cruise in Minority Report. And think about the back of it turning into the metaverse where you could lean in and look around without any hardware. That's kind of what I've been working on. Super interesting, super hard at the same time.
I couldn't what you just explained. Someone's like, wow, that's so like that. It's not existing. I saw it. I worked with it myself. I saw how it interacted. I'm like, this is happening. This is where we're going. Everything we've heard, it's almost like you got the metaverse, you've got AI, you've got all the friction that you have now between, people not adopting the metaverse as much as you thought they were going to. That starts to melt away. And this whole 3D interactive reality is really taking shape. I want to change the conversation just a little bit because you're coming here to talk to a healthcare audience, senior healthcare executives throughout South Florida, and they're interested in emerging technologies, digital transformation. They're interested in they've been told year after year, we're laggards in this industry. We're not adopting technology. There's better ways to do it, to deliver patient outcomes, to deliver patient or even the workforce better, to take some of the friction out of that. How do you start utilizing some of the tech that you're working on as we start looking forward? Because this is all about Digital Horizons 2030. Just a snippet of what you might talk about at our conference coming up.
Well, I think it's really interesting that industries that are the last to adopt technology are seen as unsophisticated somehow. The facts are that industries have been absorbing technology for a very long time, whether it was electricity, iron, motors, steam engines, the internet. Every industry goes through a process where you absorb some new technology, and the dynamics of the market and the competitive nature of the market forces you to loosen capital to do a CapEx investment to be able to transform your business. And as you balance, every time there's new technology to be absorbed, you have to balance the propensity to win with the capacity for change, right? And then you kind of decide what transformation journey you want to go on. Some industries can go first and pay what are considered to be the learning taxes to get it wrong and go first. And some industries just can't. I mean, with healthcare, we're talking about people's lives. And you want to make sure the bugs are out of the technology. You want to make sure the best practices are established. You want to make sure that the risk has been lowered to a certain place before you implement certain technologies into healthcare so that you can absorb the technology and improve lives. So I think first and foremost, the conversation I want to have with the audience is going to be, going first is not a good thing in your industry. And there's nothing wrong with going next to last. That's okay. The question is, when it's time to go, are you prepared? Do you have a good idea of how to use it? Do you have a good plan? Do you have a strategy in mind? And the issue there is a lot of times the experts don't gravitate to the industries that are going last. And so you don't get to hire the right talent. You don't get to engage with the right consulting organizations to make sure that when it's time to go, you're going all the way forward. And so I want to make sure that no one feels like, oh my God, I'm in healthcare, we're always last. You're supposed to be last. That's the way it is. We're playing with people's lives here, right? So that's first. Second is, I think when it goes to adopting new technology, whether it's AI, which we're going to talk about, whether it's immersive reality, which we'll talk about a little bit. I may even show it if you'd like to, Grant. I don't want to make that the distraction of the show. Everybody likes to see a little Minority Report, so to speak, right? But, as we think about engaging with technology, healthcare has a lot of opportunities where we can go first. And the question is to be able to parse the risk in the various use cases, to find those no regret use cases where you can go out and you're looking for two things. You're looking for an output, meaning you've created some accretive value for patients or the networks or payers, but more importantly, you're looking for learning at the same time. Yes, the industry can go last on something, but the industry should be the most prepared when it's ready to go.
Often when I pitch an idea or I'm looking to do something, I don't talk about the technology. I talk more about the benefits and kind of seeing the future. For us, it was about how do we get the computer out of the physician's hands and get them back to laying hands on patients where they have conversations and discussions and do medicine again.
So that's kind of the conversation I'm going to be hoping to have with the executives down at the event in South Florida.
Oh, you will have that. That I love the preference of what you just said, because it makes sense. It makes perfect sense, because you are dealing with patient lives, and that is most important. And we want to improve on those outcomes to the best level. One of the things that we're seeing now with this emerging technology is in the fact of, with AI, it's about ethics. It's about digital ethics. We don't have the laws because the technology is emerging so fast, and it's coming, its impact is so powerful that our laws, our regulations, everything that we've had in place from a compliance doesn't fit. How do you see this playing out overall? And do you see this as being a positive or negative in healthcare?
Yeah. So I think every change that could occur to a group of humans has different opinions about the change as it's happening. If we had a class of 30 students right now, and the class was happening at 2 p.m. this afternoon, and Grant, we decided we're going to change the hour of the class to another day. In that population of 30 students, they're going to be the evangelists who are like, yes, class changes, everything is great. Then there's going to be the optimists and the realists and the pessimists and the alarmists. The alarmist is going to go, oh my God, this is it. They're going to change classes forever. We're done. College is over, right? Human opinion always spreads on this bell curve about what's going to happen, about change. And with AI, it's no different. We've got the evangelists on one side, the optimists, the realists, the pessimists, and the alarmists on this bell curve. And so it's important to kind of parse someone's bias to that bell curve to understand where the facts really lie. The truth is, with every piece of change, everything from the internet to electricity to fire, There are massive benefits that come to it as we think about our standard of life and the value we create and the types of communities and cultures that we evolve. And there are challenges as well. Fire is probably the best example, right? There's a good saying, fire is a great servant and a terrible master, right? Well, where would we be without fire today? So as we think about these waves of technology, as we have to absorb them, both as corporations and cultures, there's always going to be good and bad. Where we are with AI is a little bit better than where we were with the internet. And I say that because I believe that we're having conversations earlier about the unintended consequences that can come from the technology, right? If we think about the day we connected to the internet, most of us connected to the internet because a CD was sent to our house. There was a code on the CD, you popped it into your machine and you plugged the modem in and you heard, you got mail, right? And that's how we were connected. We didn't have any conversation about ethics. We didn't have any conversation about bias. We didn't have any conversation about equity, inclusion, or exclusion, right? We didn't have any conversations about mental health. It was about 15, 20 years after when everybody started to post their information on Facebook and create an unnecessary spike in human vanity, did we really start to have these conversations about the unintended consequences. So while I agree that AI is moving faster and AI is bigger and it has more impact, we're also way more aware about the unintended consequences that we see today. Now, are we going to have some ebb and flow between government being behind and technology being advanced, or technology being too advanced and culture not catching up? Obviously, right? We're going to stumble a few times before we start to think about how to run this marathon. And that's an unavoided consequences of its own, right? But in the long arc of humanity, I believe that we will be able to trend towards good for all, positive to all, just like we've been trending the way we are today. When you look at the world through a decade lens, it seems like things are not moving, but when you look at it through the lens of a century, you see that the long arc of human nature curves towards a fairer, more just, more enjoyable life.
The health system that I grew up in, that my mom worked at, they were embarking on their epic journey. And so I was hired into a new role here that they had, which was the Chief Technology Officer. And so my scope of responsibilities here is all on the tech side predominantly, but we play such an integral role with our application colleagues and with our epic colleagues. So that's where I joined the organization here. NCH healthcare system at the time where Hurricane Ian hit us directly, and us in the Fort Myers area. So in healthcare IT, we are driven by disaster recovery, right? Like we plan for it our whole careers. Like that's the first thing you learn about when you come into an IT organization is what's the disaster recovery plan? And typically, once you've been in the industry for some time, you are used to working through disasters.
My name is Kendall Brown. I'm the immediate past president of South Florida HIMSS chapter. Let's dive into how the chapter has excelled in engagement, board management, local impact, and positive outcomes. Between June 2022 and May 2023, during COVID times, we still hosted a staggering 18 events. This included 25 education hours, over 15 hours of networking, and 8 hours advocating in health IT. Every 3 weeks, we hosted an opportunity for members to engage in South Florida HIMSS chapter. Our commitment to governance shines. We onboard new members annually, have peer-reviewed training, and deliberate over financial matters on a monthly basis. With specialized committees and active recruitment, our board stays dynamic and effective. Our community has flourished thanks to initiatives like scholarships and mentorship programs. Our events have ranged from forecasting the future with the CIO and addressing age tech needs. Plus, our annual Integrate conference had over 300 attendees and over 30 speakers. We prioritize our community's request, leading to the addition of a mentor-mentee program. We're proud of our membership growth, surpassing over 2,000 members. Notably, system analysts and students make up our significant portions. From our strong board management to community impact, the South Florida HIMSS chapter continues to set the bar high. Thank you for being a part of our journey.
Getting this vision of Prometheus. Everybody remembers, if you know the story of Prometheus, he brings fire down to mankind from the gods, right? And it's kind of like where we're going. We're bringing this incredible intelligence to humanity. And to your point, you don't know, some people will take the fire and build a village and have a campfire and do good things. Other people might want to burn down a forest. So we've got to be cognizant of those factors. I want to bring something up because I know there's so many people on my IT side of the ball who are just itching for me to ask you this question. You have been very successful at developing applications, software applications, different technologies over your career. And people are like, yeah, I got this idea. They want to get into the startup world. They want to be that next big thing. What advice would you give them?
Well, I think first of all, if you are not prepared to fail miserably, don't get started. The odds of achieving a disproportionately positive performance or a disproportionately positive outcome in a venture are like 1 in 100. And so you're playing a game where you have a 99% chance of failure. And in startups, you take on a startup the way you take on a child, right? It's yours, it's your baby in some ways. You have your fingerprint, your brand, your DNA into it. The slides look the way you think, the company's name based on a set of verbal values that you have. And so when you fail, it's catastrophic, right? It's not for the faint of heart. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's not good enough to try. What I'm saying that everybody's not prepared enough to fail. And that's the first piece of advice I would give. That preparation for failure is very, very, very important because it damages mental health, it damages quality of life. The second thing I would say is, if you're not passionate about the problem that you're trying to solve, and I know this is said over and over and over and over, but if you're not passionate about the problem and you're slightly oriented to the technology or the solution, you're already at odds of losing. Because what I have found is that the thing that you think is going to solve the problem very rarely actually solves the problem. You've got to have the courage to pivot over and over and over to be able to solve that problem. So the thing that you should be in love with and at war with at the same time is the problem, not the technology. And a lot of times founders come from a very solution orientation. I've got this thing that I think could solve this thing. And by the way, look at the amount of things that could solve at the same time. You're already set up for failure. Yeah. You've got to have some problem that irks you, that irritates you, that getting rid of that problem is the bane of your existence. And that gives you the fuel and the fortitude to break through the thousands of walls that are going to be in front of you. For example, with Mobius, while I'm excited about the technology, the thing that I don't want more than anything else is I don't want to find out 10 years from now my kids are lying on a sofa with a toaster strapped to their head with their entire view of the world occluded. So I am here to get rid of that version of the future, regardless of how we get there from a technological standpoint. Now, that doesn't guarantee my success, but it certainly insulates me away from falling in love with the solution. Winning startups is an emotional game. It's not a technical game. It's a game of the heart, not a game of the brain. And you have to find something that you are at war with to be able to go all the way.
Man, I think that advice there is golden. And that doesn't mean don't live your passion, but understand the right frame of mind that you've got to be in and be prepared to win the game. Every week, I'm a big NFL football fan, right? And you got to get out there and you're playing against the strongest, smartest people on the planet that's against you in order to win the game. And you have to understand that everybody wants the Super Bowl trophy at the end of the day. And I think if you really look at it, at the end of that day, of those 32 teams and that one team that actually wins that game, all of them are elevated to a higher level because of how they collaborated, how they competed, how they got to that level, and that changes the whole game, or what I call the NFL. So we got to look at how we changing the game of the startup community. What does that look like? Health IT. How does that look? How do we, place this into our society to make maximum impact? To your point earlier, so our kids, because that's what we're doing it for, right? Our generations that are following us, so they don't have a toaster strapped to their head or a microwave, or I remember being in front of television. Oh, you look at that thing, your eyes, you're gonna go blind. I remember all those things. So, but the technology changes over time, but it takes people like yourself to change it, to be brave enough to do it, to take it on. And I'm going to ask you this on a personal level. If someone had to say, you're not even in the room, someone had to say, yeah, Richie Prasad, I think we need to bring him in. He's very good. He's been a chief technology officer. He's done a lot of different things for a lot of different startups. He's got some great ideas. How do you like him as a person? What do you think about him? What do you think they would say?
Well, I think it depends on who you ask. If you ask my family, my immediate family, my wife and my two sons, they would say he's a nerd. He's always reading, drawing, tinkering, that type of stuff. If you ask my extended family, they'll say he's a little strange. I'm not necessarily very accessible to sort of like, the more normal colloquial behaviors, right, of the species. If you ask my colleagues, they will say that he is intense but kind. I can be very intense, but I'm never rude or too overly direct. And if you ask my competition, they'll say he's a murderer. I mean, I play the game to win for my clients, and winning for clients is a competitive sport. And I think my competitors would probably have the best description of me, which is, I'm very intense in the market.
And it's got to, fuel your creativity, because that there's we'll call them killers on the other side of that ball. And they're going after that same trophy like I was giving out with that NFL. But that makes you better, it makes you stronger. It makes you like, wow, like you come out with your whole new creation. You've rolled it out. You've got to get out there. You got your, it's pitch night, right? So you've got to pitch that in front of these investors who've got the millions of dollars that they're going to put it in your pocket. And then you're ready to get on stage and somebody comes on before you and they got a killer after you went, oh my God. Has that ever happened to you?
I've had situations like that, but it's like, look, I'm a Jets fan, right? And you have to empathize with me for being a Jets fan. The last time I saw a good game from the Jets was a Monday night when Vinny Testaverde came back in the fourth quarter and I think beat the Miami Dolphins. I think Dan Marino retired after that day. This is like 20 years ago. But part of it is your level of play raises when you play against the best, right? If the Jets were to practice against the Eagles for 6 times next year, I guarantee you they're going to play better, right? So a lot of times in the business context, competition is really just an opportunity to raise your game. To me, the hardest pitches are the ones that I grow the most. The most difficult, competitive pursuits are the ones where I advance the most. And so, yes, it feels terrible, but there's really no growth without pain, right? So that's how. Now, is it unfortunate and is it disappointing sometimes? Yeah, but I believe that the stronger the opponent that you play, the more growth you get.
Then I got one more question, maybe 2, I don't know, but this is good. If I ask you, I said, Richie, what's your greatest achievement in your life so far that you're very proud of? What would you say?
Man, who's your favorite podcaster? Man, Grant, man. I love Grant's podcast. Well, who's Grant? I'm going to send you the link. I love Grant.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaugh, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaugh explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
The transformative nature of education. Listen, I have no doubt in my mind of what my life would have been had I stayed home. I see it when I travel, when I go back home. So I know the transformative nature. I have to tell you, I have to tell you, I just love education. I want our students to identify that they are in a school of science, computing, and artificial intelligence. And I want them to understand that this is where the future is. So our goal is to make sure that all the students eventually graduate data literate.
Well, I have more of a close personal one, and then I'll give you something that's a
Sure.
little bit externalized. But my oldest, I got two boys, one's 6, one's 4.5, and my oldest boy, I had him watching TED Talks when he was like 6 months old. Most kids are watching the wheels of the bus go round and round. I had him watching TED Talks. I'm not even sure if he would have understood them at the time. And I trained him very early to say the only things that should be in your head are ideas. Like you should be coming up with ideas all the time. That's the whole nature of the world. Like just think about things that hadn't been taught. And the other day, somebody was talking to him, one of his uncles, and he's that kid now, right? It's going on all the time. And so he's constantly coming up with interesting things. And his uncle goes, "Hey, what's going on in your brain?" And he goes, "Oh, there's a party up there. It's eating cake and chocolates and just coming up with ideas all the time." And I was like, "There's a party in your head, eating cake, just coming up with ideas?" He's like, "Yep, that's what's happening here." And stuff for a 6-year-old, that's what they want, right? Cake and chocolate in their head. So that's something that I take pride in. My wife is pretty convinced that that's going to have a long-term negative impact on him, but we'll see how that plays out. Something more external. My first startup that I did was in privacy. And at that point, I looked at the market and I thought that human data should be human property, meaning just like our intellectual property, our thoughts are ours through intellectual property, our productivity is ours through labor laws, that our activity should become ours, the data that emits from us. And that organizations that were monetizing this data in surveillance capitalism were sort of on the wrong side of history, and that we ought to think about this. And so I built a company, and the go-to-market was to look at business-to-consumer contracts. So when you download an app, you see this long contract that you would scroll through, and at the bottom is a beautifully designed I accept button. I built technology to read thousands of those contracts using natural language processing. This is way before AI was automated and had a workbench. And to be able to extract the common words that made up the clauses that were negotiable in the contract, so that we could turn the I accept button into a set of sliders, right? Where you can go, look, I'm willing to give this amount of my data, but in exchange, I'm willing to pay for it, as opposed to, I'll give you all my data and I want the service for free. So a negotiable moment as opposed to the take it or leave it, I accept button. And it was very interesting. We were able to take that to market. That company is still running today. Not as great as I would hope it to run, but think about, this was 6 years ago. Today, now we all realize our data is being used to train artificial intelligence. The go-to-market is what I'm proud of. I looked at society, and it occurred to me that we needed a 31st human right. We had 30 already. Human rights are from 1948, and they're great, making sure that we don't damage each other, but it's not done. There's no rule that says we would only have 30. That we needed to add more as we go forward. And so I petitioned the United Nations to add a 31st human right to the Declaration of Human Rights that would classify human data as human property. Of course, they said absolutely not, and we would need more consensus and all that type of stuff. But in the raising of that conversation, right around the time of GDPR, there were 10 chief privacy officers in the world. If you searched on LinkedIn, today there's over 10,000. We were the only startup in the world that was trying to give people property rights on their data. Today there's over 250 VC-backed startups that are trying to help people monetize their data. So that's a piece of the work. That's a body of work that I'm very proud of. I don't think I'm going to be able to see that one all the way to the end, but I'm sure as hell happy that I was a part of the beginning.
No, you'll be the father of that document. I love that, man. That we'll have to get your name. That'll be the bill. The Richie Etwaru bill. That'll be it. So I'm looking forward to that. One more thing before I leave you, and that is, what would you like to tell our upcoming audience at HIMSS South Florida Integrate 2023? You're going to be a keynote speaker for our lunchtime. What would you like to tell them about what you're going to talk about, what's important for you? What do you think is going to be most relevant?
Well, I think we're going to talk about AI a little bit, and I'm going to talk about why AI is a little bit different from every other wave of technology that we've had to absorb, whether it's software or the internet or everything else. And what's different is that AI has this component where it accelerates the benefit of everything that's come before it. So AI makes software faster. AI makes electrical circuits more effective. It makes industry more efficient with machines. It advances mathematics. It has made language better with large language models. And when AI is applied to the platform of biology, the synthetic biology will move faster. And so in many ways, we're going into a cycle where the speed is going to double or triple of what we're going to see as far as adopting technological change. And a lot of big things are going to happen that would have happened 10 years, 100 years, 300 years out are going to get pulled in a little bit. The future is about to appear 2 times faster than it would have.
Wow.
Okay? And as a result, as you think about organizations, you have to think now about how do you balance that propensity to win and that capacity to change at the same time. And it's going to be a little bit different. Digital transformations, they can last 3 to 5 years, and you have to adjust your strategy maybe every 6 months or every 9 to 12 months. And that's sort of that organizational structure that's kind of rigored, that goes through these careful cycles with the type of change that we're seeing coming. And we'll go through some of these at the conference. You kind of have to cycle faster. And so you'll have to be able to learn how to balance the capacity to win and the propensity to win and the capacity to change with the courage to pivot at the same time. You're going to have to change your strategy almost every 3 months. And in the early years, maybe almost every month. And so the top line organizing principle, I think, that's going to be needed from an executive standpoint is you're going to have to go from an organization that's transforming to something that's more like an organism, okay? That has the capacity to self-reinvent within a set of rules faster. We're gonna have to go from transformation to adaptation. And that's where I think the real change is gonna happen, where speed and flexibility is gonna matter. Doesn't mean you have to go first. It just means that when you start going, this is gonna be the nature of the change. And I'll give people things to talk about. For example, if you want to understand the impact of AI to healthcare, you have to have a set of extremes that could inform your bias. So for example, if I told you, or if you assumed that there's enough data in the world already to cure every disease, we don't need another bite of data captured to cure every disease, that AI can help us do that with the data that we already have captured, that shows you an angle of thinking that you could start to look from, a perspective to say, now I understand the capacity of these algorithms. If we didn't have these algorithms, we would think we have to collect more data to solve all diseases. But what if these algorithms already have enough data to do that? And that kind of sets up the North Star in your head so you can start to paint a picture of how do you want to plot your path through the future.
These are very interesting topics that we've got to explore. We are on the precipice of a technological leap and an improvement. I'm looking forward to improvement in the human drama. That would be awesome. And before I let you go, can you let the audience know what's the best way to contact you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I've always been a LinkedIn fan. I think I have profiles on the other networks, but I don't really act on them. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, and I engage there. Pretty much anyone who messages me get a response within 24 to 48 hours.
That works for me. I am a LinkedIn fan myself. I do a lot on LinkedIn. I found it the most effective tool for business development and personal branding that I've ever seen in my life. I said, wow, I wish I had this when I was 6 years old, and I was thinking about all the different parties and cake in my head and music. That would have been a nice idea to have, but somebody had the idea, and here we are living in it right now. This is wonderful. Thank you for being on the Follow the Brand. I want to encourage your entire audience to view all the episodes on Follow the Brand at www.5starbdm. That is B for brand, D for development, and for masters.com. Until next time, thank you very much for being on the show, Richie.
Thanks, man. Had a blast.
Me too.
Man, who's your favorite podcaster? Man, Grant, man. I love Grant's. Well, who's Grant? I'm going to send you the link. I love Grant.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
think that, as Grant said, I think entrepreneurship is definitely the most important aspect, because if we're creating things and we're not creating things that we can benefit off of, or that our children can benefit off of, or that our communities can benefit off of, then, you know, what is the point of existence, right? If we can't manifest things that are ultimately going to make our lives better as well as those around us. And entrepreneurship at its core is ownership. And without ownership, without owning and being able to turn your creations into assets, then, you know, we're really just behind the ball. And so, you know, it's my hope that that I can inspire young people, as well as those that may be mid-career and those that may be at the end of their career, to actually think about the field of technology and to think about the opportunities that exist, the low barriers to entry. All you need is a laptop and an internet connection to get in the game. And so hopefully, you know, my experience can be encouraging to others, that you don't have to have, you know, all these credentials, etc., to really produce and to surpass those that may actually have credentials as well.
Passion has been around helping communities of color and historically underrepresented and underserved communities, minority, rural, veterans, persons who are differently able, in the intersection of education, innovation, technology, industry, and let's throw some entrepreneurship in there just for fun. See more around innovation, incubators, accelerators. I love the idea of going from innovation to commercialization.
Tune in for our next show or click on our website at www.firestarbdm/followthebrandtv. Thank you.